History Podcast. I'm your host, Jameson Cable, and today we're joined with Jerry Fischer of the Meade County History Museum. This episode was recorded in the Meade County History Museum.
My name's Jerry Fischer. I'm a Meade County resident now, but I'm a transplant. I was born in Bowling Green, and I finally got my head together and moved to what I think is the best county and the best kept secret in Kentucky. I have a degree in anthropology, specialized in Eastern Kentucky or Eastern prehistoric archaeology, and worked in a couple of museums, the Louisville Library Museum, and we formed a historical society here in 2005 with the purpose of starting a museum, which we did in 2018. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. It sounds like you're the person to talk about as far as the Meade County history goes.
Yeah.
And so we talked a little earlier about the native population and so forth.
Yes.
Pretty active around this area.
Well, I guess there are some people. If we take the time of discovery here, the chief group on the Indiana side of the river were the Wyandotte. As a matter of fact, the flint found in Indiana known as Wyandotte Church.
Yeah.
So that would be now Wyandotte. Actually, is the word for Southern Huron. The Indians around Lake Huron. This is the southern branch of it. They were Indians that lived near lakes or water.
Yeah.
On this side of the river, it would have been the Shawnee, or the Cherokee, or the Chickasaw down in the southwest corner. But mostly those folks. In the prehistory of the state, we had every temporal cultural period represented right here, from the Paleo to the late woodland to the historic people that Boone encountered.
Yeah. Once we get into then Meade County is formed in 1823.
Yes.
Obviously, Kentucky was 1792, so there's more people. Yeah, before Meade County was formed, who would be those first European settlers? From Virginia or wherever they may have came from.
The very first.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Boone would have been in that category. So would Pilsen, Bullitt.
Yeah.
All of those folks. As a matter of fact, all the pioneers, the early pioneers, came here, and they were breaking the law just by being here. The English had a treaty with the Shawnee, who occupied mostly Ohio and northern Kentucky, that the whites would not go beyond the Allegheny Mountains. They would stay east of the Allegheny. But the lure of free land sent these explorers over. And some people are now calling them, not calling them explorers, or not calling them, they're calling them invaders. Believe that or not, but I've heard that term at the Pilsen Club. They really weren't invaders, but in a sense of breaking the treaty, the English and the Indians sided together, which made things a little harder. So, but
and just geographically, so people know, you have Breckinridge County and Hardin County. Is that the only two counties that?
Well,
Kentucky, I'm not talking about Indiana counties, but
yeah. We have Hardin and Breckinridge, and I'm not sure if we touch Hancock a little bit down there. So all these counties, and it was because we're a commonwealth, and that's a little bit different. But in Kentucky, if you had a population of 5,000 within a certain region, then you can make it a county. And so counties broke up. For example, Boyle and Mercer split. Now, all of the square footage of Kentucky is up. 120 counties, all we're going to get. That's it. But I think that's right. I think it's Breckenridge, Hardin, and I'm not sure if we touch. No, we touch Bullitt, or that Bullitt is just down from Hardin at West Point. I believe that's right.
Yeah. And then, I mean, population-wise, we're looking at.
We have about 30,000 people, and about 2,000 in the city of Brandenburg. And we have a number of little cities or little towns. I haven't counted them, but Akron, Painville, Rodelia. There's some of the little towns. There are others, but yeah. I don't know if that answers you.
Brandenburg's the county seat.
Yes, and
When it was formed, when was Brandenburg established?
1823 was the year. For I believe 2 years, all of Kentucky was Kentucky County, Virginia.
Yeah.
And then and we became a commonwealth because Virginia was a commonwealth. But so was Massachusetts and Pennsylvania. They're the other two commonwealths, and I think 4 is all there. Yeah. Which is a collection of independent counties. And that probably confuses a lot of people because a county can be wet or dry. A county can set its own speed limits.
Yeah.
Except for state roads and federal roads.
Yeah.
Now they can't monkey with those, but they can certainly set. And you see, I think it's part of the charm of the state.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, and Kentucky is unique. Whenever you go to other states, they'll say, "I'm from whatever town or city." Kentucky, you say, "What county are you from?"
That's I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's just different. But counties could split up until the time that they used up the available space.
Well, I mean, and you have Robertson County, which is 2,000 people, and it's super small up in northeastern Kentucky. And then you have Pike County, who's giant.
Well, it's interesting. There's a friend of mine, Eddie Price, who is in Hancock County. They have approximately the same population we do, but where we have 2,000 in the city, they have like 28 in 2,000 in the it's the city is the and that makes a difference in how they function, how the counties function.
Yeah.
Out here, it's the agricultural community probably has a little more influence on the purse strings. Now, but that's slowly shifting with Nucor and with the industry that we have along the river here.
And which Eddie Price, he does the Chautauqua.
Oh yes, Eddie's Eddie, and as a matter of fact, he's my mentor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when I wrote my first book, I called Eddie and I said, "Hey, I got to know some things." And he just took care of me. He's a great guy. He and Mary, I still see them at book fairs and things. Yeah.
So, and you just alluded to this a little bit, and obviously, a lot of Kentucky counties have the same progress, if you want to say it that way. First settlers come in, so towns and stuff start forming up. Farming is the main thing.
Absolutely.
For the rest of the till now, is that and how relevant is that to Meade County?
Well, it's very relevant. Of course, things have changed. Like if you go back to the 1700s, you go back to the discovery here. Flax was a big crop, and hemp was a big crop. That was what you made rope from, and so those things aren't grown now, at least legally. They are. You're in big trouble. But flax was an industry, and as a matter of fact, you talk about the early culture. When the settlers first came into Kentucky, there wasn't as much warfare as you would think between the Indians. So a lot of times the Native Americans would come up and would camp outside the fort, and they would trade back and forth. There was a mutual thing, and in Harrodsburg, which was the first permanent settlement in Kentucky, the women there started the first school. And in Kentucky, and the first two laws that were passed in Kentucky were passed in Boonesboro. One was a fish and game law, that you could not hunt within a mile of the fort because they had shot out all the game. And so they wised up real quick. And the other one was about breeding horses, that they would only breed the best horses, and they took up a collection to go buy good horses to bring in, because there were no automobiles. No. That was the automobile, and you had to have horses. Even to pull the logs up, the last logs on the cabin, they actually did that with mule or horsepower.
Wow.
I mean, how we got here is just a remarkable thing, and I still can't get my arms all the way around it.
So as population grew and so forth, as the county was established, the Civil War comes up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And Meade County has a very good hand in the Civil War, or at least some good stories. We don't have to get into all the details of those, but
yeah.
What's Meade County's Civil War connection?
Well, I tell you what, it probably makes some people happy and some people mad, but I guess that's the way the war did. Meade County, in the first election for Lincoln, he got 4 votes in Meade County. 4 votes.
It's more than Washington County.
Well, is that right? Well, the second, maybe we caught up with him there, because the second election he got 2. So the agricultural. I'm going to interrupt myself here for a minute. You got to understand something, that there were no tractors. There were no metal. Very often metal plows. They took wooden plows and they shot them with that's SHOD with iron. It was a different world, and you cannot look at that world with the eyes of today and judge their motives. They had to deal with what they had to deal with. Every seed, every individual seed had to be planted. Now they'd make it and drop the seeds, but they had to be individually planted. The weeds had to be individually hoed. There were no spreaders. There were no grading blades or anything like that.
Pesticides, none of that.
None of it. And so it was different. But the county favored the Confederacy. The city favored the Union. And I don't know.
No problem, right?
Well, I'll tell you, we had one just horrible thing here, the Lucy Hamilton story. She was a slave girl that was raped by her owner's son, and she killed him with a butcher knife. She was only 16 years old, and she had already had 2 children, probably by him. And so she ended up being hanged. But the grand jury or the jury back then served for all year.
Yeah.
The jury foreman quit in order to allow her time to deliver. And then, to make sure, the judge quit. Because it was a travesty that this girl was hung. She was hung.
Yeah.
She was hanged in 1840, I think 48. Her tale made the newspapers in Connecticut and along the eastern seaboard in New England.
Yeah.
It was a horrible tale. She was put in jail. She was finally sentenced, but when the judge quit, Judge Moorhead, I believe, Moorhead or Morehouse, appointed a new judge, and he came down and he said, "You're sentenced to death, and it'll be June 2nd, I think, whatever the date was." And they took her up to a blackjack oak. I can show you that, by the way. And they put her in an ox cart, stood her on her coffin, and the sheriff's wife made her a new dress and took the baby, and they tied her hands, blindfolded her, and drove the ox cart out. And I think at that point in time, a little bit of the color of Meade County, I think, died.
Yeah.
Died with her. It was a shame.
Yeah.
But the people out in the county brought their slaves to watch what would happen,
Oh.
and so the reports are, the old history says there were several thousand. I hate that story, but
Yeah.
I have written about it.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame, but that's not today.
Yeah. Now, and that's it's interesting, the divide in San Meade County. You had the town that was more Union, the country area more southern, but in all of Kentucky, the counties were split in many different ways. Even we did an episode about Kenton County. And you would think Kenton County,
Yeah, right
up north, it'd
Yeah.
be full Union, but no, there was southern. It was split like most of them. Now, if you really start to probably divide it up, you're going to get more support in southern, western Kentucky for the South. You're going to get more support eastern and northern Kentucky for the Union. But when you start dividing up and looking at individual counties, it can be very
Nelson County was very Confederate.
Yeah.
Very Confederate. I've done a lot of research out there lately, and I got to tell you, I mean, those people were rabid. I mean, they were.
But yeah, and so.
Matter of fact, Bud and Donnie Pence, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They were two of Quantrell's Raiders. They're very good friends of Jesse and Frank. They lived across in Missouri. They lived across the road from each other. One of them each of those two brothers married Judge Samuel's daughters. He was the Nelson County judge.
Uh-huh.
Donnie became sheriff for about 30 years. And Bud became town marshal of Taylorsville.
Yeah, wow.
Now, this was way after the war.
Yeah.
I mean, you sit there and you think, man,
Yeah.
and you gotta love Kentucky.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what we'll get to in a second too, after the war. But you're talking about the Raiders and stuff. We don't have to get into all the details because it's a long story as well. But Sue Mundy.
Oh, he was caught right here.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, his name was Marcellus Jerome Clark. He was he was a handsome. He wasn't handsome. He was pretty. Now, he really was. He was a pretty guy. He had no facial hair. He was 6 foot tall. That was the only thing that belied his sex.
Mm-hmm.
The girls loved him.
Yeah.
And he had all kinds of rumors told about him that he would dress up in a gown or a dress and go in and dance with the Union soldiers and the Union's officers, and meanwhile be counting their cannon and think. I don't think he fought except one fight, and that's the one here where he faced a cannon. They fought. These guerrillas fought in. And most of them were came from the Morgan raid, which was not a failed raid. It actually drew off 31,000 troops that Rosecrans had requested, and that's why Bragg got to move on. But those guys fought very, very personal battles against each other. It could be 5 to 10 on the side. 25 was a pretty good number.
Yeah.
And they fought under the Partisan Ranger Act. Lincoln sent arms down to the border states, into every city along the riverways, and Brandenburg got some, and different cities got them. And as a reprisal, the Confederacy passed the Partisan Ranger Act of 1862. And what it said is that small groups of men could fight behind the lines as Confederate soldiers, and they would be paid by collecting the weapons of the men they killed or captured and giving them to a Confederate quartermaster, and the quartermaster would pay them the going price for those guns. Now, you talk about a loosey-goosey kind of, and it was hard for that to be to work. But what happened is these little groups of men settled scores with their neighbors, and there was a lot of killing going on that really had nothing to do with the war. If you had a property boundary dispute, you hoped you were on the side of the guerrillas. Otherwise, it was a bad time to live in any county in Kentucky. It really was.
A good question. Did Meade County's courthouse burn, or did it?
No, it didn't. It was after Morgan's raid. Of course, we had people. We had Union troops down here most of the time. Colonel Buckley. We had, I think he had 50 some odd men at the courthouse. They actually bunked at our hotel down here.
Okay.
Yeah, they that was where they stayed, and we had guerrilla raids on the courthouse. Bill Marion, Captain Bill Marion, who is, by the way, related to John Y. Brown, the 3 John Y. Browns that have served, 2 governors and 1 Secretary of State. Yeah, they're kin by marriage. Yeah. They're there. And that's another thing. All these rabbit holes you go down, they've got branches.
Sometimes they connect. So after the Civil War, as you said, obviously the Civil War tensions remain for about 50 years, if not continue.
I think there are some people, I don't say are fighting that war. I mean, I don't think anybody would ever want to go back to what it was. I certainly wouldn't. But there are people who have very strong family pride.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, in some respects, the Confederacy was absolutely wrong. But it was the law of the land. So one thing nobody seems to bring up is that 4 years before the Civil War started, the Supreme Court legalized slavery in every state in the Union. Did you know that?
No, I don't think I did. No.
Yes, they did. It was called the Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott decision stated that if you were a slave in Alabama and you moved to New York, you were still a slave. So it legalized slavery in every state in the Union, even though New York had abolished slavery.
Yeah.
Now, what do? Well,
Yeah.
and so the fight started over states' rights. And you can see why.
Yeah.
Was this state right, or was this state
Uh-huh.
right? Was the Supreme Court right, or was the Supreme? So it was a very complicated matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And then, well, it just led to the war. So in Meade County, we're right on the river too. So fishing industry and
oh, well, we had, of course, there was fishing. Now, something I said you can't look with the eyes of today on that.
yeah.
If you were here in 1861 and you looked across the river, you could actually shout across the river, and Morgan and Colonel Timberlake did. His men, they taunted each other across the river.
Yeah.
You can't hear from this side of the river. That's because back then there were no locks and dams.
Yeah.
The river was 800 yards wide. Now it's 1,200 yards wide. There's 200 yards of Brandenburg underwater.
Uh-huh.
There's 200 yards of Indiana underwater. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different situation. So the shelling and fishing industry was different than it is now. They would go out into the channel. They would drop down iron bars crisscross that were tied together, and the mussels would clam onto them, and then they pull them up, take the mussels off, and that's what you made your buttons out of.
Uh-huh.
Now they took the mussel shell, and you can eat them. I've eaten them.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, and I've eaten them, and I'm still here. And they're not bad.
Yeah.
But they would sell that meat to the catfish commercial fishermen.
Uh-huh.
So the shells went to make buttons. They drilled discs out of the shells, and that was a cottage industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So around the, say, turn of the century, getting into, say, 1900, any events going on, anything changing? In Kentucky, it's kind of the Wild West for the most part.
Well, it was. We had, we still had a lot of, there was feuding going on. The Richardsons family, and we were talking about this yesterday with Andy Wolfwick, but the Richardson family was on one side of the Civil War, and they were the largest slave owners in Kentucky. They had 74 slaves. And when you think about that, a slave, I hope no one gets mad at me, but a slave back then, a good field hand that was young enough, healthy enough, strong enough to be productive for, say, 20 or 30 years, the death rate was much lower.
Yeah.
The mortality rate. And but if they could get 20 or 30 years, they would sell for between $1,500 and $2,000. Now that's in Civil War money, where a penny would buy you a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
It was different, and so you did. But there was a dispute between these two. One of the families came home. One of the husbands came home, and the wife had a baby.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be because he was down there fighting this fight.
Yeah.
And it seemed settled. The husband was forgiving, and it seemed like it was a settled issue, but they ended up having a gunfight, and the cuckolded, if that's a word, husband is the one that got killed. And he was kind of sort of ambushed into that.
Yeah.
But so there was a lot of that. There was a lot of settling scores, church splits. Our Methodist church here, right up there, the big Methodist church, it joined the Southern Convention, or the Northern Convention, which declared slavery a sin. Well, it made some of the other churches that were Methodists object.
Yeah.
That it wasn't a sin; it was codified by law.
Yeah.
and it was still confusing. So there was some unrest throughout, and even today, there are people whose families were all Confederate or were all Union, and who still are proud of what their people did.
Yeah.
We're going to pause right there with Jerry Fischer of the Meade County History Museum. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.